Greetings, Musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 29.
Dearest Agadosha, we have begun our journey into week 5 of training. Supplies are fine, morale is high, and we've got 2 blenders going for Margarita Mondays. Send limes and salt, your best.
Today I want to take one last big step into the awareness world. We talked a lot about self-awareness and environmental awareness this week, but I want to take one more day on situational awareness before I release you back into the wild. Situational awareness is that skill that soldiers and athletes have that lets them keep track of the movements of allies and foes in the heat of battle.
Bandits, 3 o'clock high. Bandits, 6 o'clock low. Bandits, 4:20. Wait, what?
Situational awareness can be even more complicated for muses, because depending upon our assignment, we could be looking for anything to try and discover truths. That's why we practice controlling our beam of focus. An issue I found trying to work on my own situational awareness was feeling that I had to read everything that was happening or I wasn't doing it right. I would attempt to fully open myself to an environment and end up overwhelmed in a corner mumbling to myself.
6 people have hoodies. Are hoodies cool again? So many pastels. It's not Easter, is it? 2 people have conflicting perfumes and 3 people smell like sex. Odd number 6.
Beam of focus is a training tool we use to work on situational awareness by shrinking down the amount of variables we're working with. It's prioritizing which details are important. That's the secret. Let's say we've been hired by a company to do an evaluation of their corporate culture. I would have whoever hired us invite us to their next company event and read the entire group collectively. I always use events to evaluate companies whenever possible. First off, getting a company to throw a party is way easier than getting their staff to fill out evaluations honestly. And parties give you a chance to see actual physical comfort zones and who fits in them. Humans will find comfort in their own types and cluster together in little hives. If you want to find a beehive at an event, look for these bees. Bars, buffets, backyards, and bathrooms. These are your busy bee areas of any event. The buffet means wherever the food is, and the backyard can be a porch or an outside area. Basically the closest area for any smokers, tokers, or midnight jokers. Upon arrival at any event after I've greeted the host, I begin scouting all of the beehives. Those are where the action will be, so that's all we'll focus on. But if I work the beehives enough and keep my beam of focus, I will get a collective feel of the event. And the authentic feels of your employees is your corporate culture. Your mission today is to muse about your beam of focus. Specifically, how you would use it to read a situation or an event. What type of things would you notice first? What do you notice after you've left? How can you cut bigger events or situations into pieces that you can understand and deal with? Find your way to always understand what's going on, and no one will get the drop on you. Obsession. Son of a... Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, Musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 30. This week and moving forward, we're going to be creating our own musing and mental cartography tools. Or at least starting to play around with the ideas. Don't ever feel like you have to create anything when you're not ready. Mistakes can be gifts in musing, but rushing inspiration is like draining a Great Lake through a drinking straw. That just ain't gonna go well, and you're most likely just gonna blow something out permanent. When we talk about musing or mental cartography tools, we are talking about creative thought crafts. The idea of mental cartography is using what you already understand well to figure out the things that you don't. Sports, entertainment, art, and hobbies are all full of useful human truths. Most people look at those things like distractions, but muses see them as roadmaps to our own understanding and enjoyment right in front of our eyes. At least that's the general idea. General idea. Reporting for non-specific duty. Creating musing tools is basically like creating trick shots for your mind. We're trying to find new paths of thought that weave through all the knowledge we already have, like bouncing a ping pong ball to try and hit every surface in your home. I'd show you an example, but I'm not supposed to play with my balls in the house anymore. Or is that just when guests are over? Honey! To start making your own MC tools, look to your own obsessions. Always remember to follow what interests you first. Let your energy and inspiration pull you along. Ideas can go off in 1,000 directions, but there will always be a path that will call to you before the others. Follow it! All of the tools I've shown you are born out of my obsessions and hobbies. Feel free to use variations or combinations of any of the tools I've presented. That includes analogizing, positivity, mirrors, diamond spinning, filter swapping, if this is true, what else is true, what ifs, growing and shrinking truths, the lens of time. I use those tools to create these exercises and observations. You versus other you, meme speak, expert analysis, soliloquy, repeated questions, string of pearls, shit versions of, desired sexual opinion, the muse's home companion, relationships to time. I started building these by looking at what unique truths I know from the things that brought me joy, and then just musing the pieces around in my head until something connects. Muses work to help people understand things, so systems of understanding are great places to start for tools. Every sport has a rule book, every meal has a recipe, every building started from a blueprint. There are also many obsessions and activities that have procedures, programs, and precise formulas. There are diagnostics, breakdowns, do-it-yourself kits, and how-to tutorials about everything these days. The more specifics you know about your obsession, the more precise your tools can be. Your mission is to muse about creating your own ThoughtCraft tool. Are there ideas and truths from different obsessions that you can blend together? Is there an idea or concept that is specific to one obsession that you could map onto another? Sorry if there's less precise guidance for this lesson, but I'd love to leave it more open to see what you guys discover. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 31. It's a beautiful day in my neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Fred Rogers was a perfect muse for children. If you wish to see what genuine positivity looks like, find Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Meow meow change. Meow meow heart. Today I'd like to talk about something, it's something that we all know about, but we don't always say out loud. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Or maybe you don't. And that's the problem with subtext, and why we're talking about it today. Subtext is the metaphorical or implied truths hidden within something. As you can gather from the term text being in there, subtext often refers to the words under the words which are not being spoken. For clever-minded playwrights like Tennessee Williams, subtext is a playground full of analogies and imageries used to get their point across in a subtler fashion. It's a great narrative tool for discussing topics or themes that were more objectionable to their current societies. Sex, drug use, abuse, murder, adultery, all of these heavy human concepts have been deeply explored in subtext. Now, subtext is very different than context. Context is knowing the circumstances of a situation. It's knowing enough key pieces of information to be able to understand what's happening. This is a crude representation of an iceberg on the ocean. It would have been cruder, but I erased the penis that I drew. Knowing that there is an iceberg on the ocean is the context of this situation. But there is more to any iceberg from what you see on just the surface. What's below is the subtext. I mean, sadly, you can see that this iceberg's a piece of shit. Can't tell from the context, but the subtext. They hate puppies, they love racism, and they think your body, my choice. I mean, who does that? And the key is you couldn't tell any of this subtext from the context. Well, maybe you could if I left the penis on there. It was short, angry, and unsatisfying. Just like dear old Adolf. Before we continue, I want to have a quick word about distrust. Distrust always finds roots in our societies, and that's a good thing. We need to have our healthy walls up to keep the wolves at bay. But with the current political climate and the incredible recent advancement of AI and deepfakes, it's becoming increasingly harder to know what the real truth is. And even worse, people are cutting lines of communication and voluntarily entering echo chambers to feed their demons instead of fighting them. This has affected a lot of people's ability to communicate face-to-face with one another, especially when people have different viewpoints or opinions. This has put human distrust on an all-time high, which can cause people to be on edge and hyper-vigilant all the time, which is not good. This can make people overread the subtext of situations. We always find what we seek, and if you're looking for something to be afraid of or be nervous about, you'll always find it. Have you ever heard someone say, I think you're reading too much into this? Well, first off, that's our job as a muse, so yeah. But secondly, what they almost always mean is that you are reading the subtext incorrectly, or adding subtext that might not be there. Reading subtext is very similar to reading what's not there from the Muse's Home Companion. Many people understand the blatant subtext of noir movies where a detective talks to a femme fatale in double to triple entendres.
Let's say some tough guy bounces this pretty bird from her copper cage. Would she be willing to sing a dirty ditty in his ear?
That stuff is dripping with delicious subtext, but most normal people don't talk like that. So we have to learn to read fine print subtext. Hot tip, subtext is not just about text. Just like status, subtext can be displayed in our verbal choices, actions, or attitudes. Also, like status, subtext can reveal our confidences, fears, and true opinions. Hot tip number 2, subtext is not just about sex. When we learned about the game Sex is Like in week 2, the main focus of that was sexual connections and analogies. But subtext is useful for any topic that people don't feel comfortable talking about directly. To read verbal subtext, you want to look for 2 things: tone of voice and word emphasis. Emphasis and tone are what shapes the words as they make their way to our ears. A stern, direct tone indicates something very different from a silly, whimsical whisper. And what words someone emphasizes reveals the subtext of what's important to them. How are we going to get there? Simple question, even tone, no emphasis. No real subtext there. Now listen to these as I add some emotion to my voice and emphasize different words. How are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? All of those could read the exact same in a note, but provide very different subtext when spoken. Which is why you're getting hot tip number 3. Don't muse with someone over text unless you know the person's tone very well. If you can't hear their tone and delivery in your head, you may not be getting the full subtext of the conversation. That's why there's just no substitute for interpersonal communication. 3 hot tips in one lesson. That's a lot. Or is it? Your mission is to muse about subtext, and its many uses in your world. What do you use your subtext for? Is there nonverbal subtext that you regularly pick up on? Is there someone whose subtext confuses you? And what was the deal with the iceberg, huh? I mean, you think you know a prehistoric block of concentrated fresh water, but... yeesh! Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 32. Yesterday we got some hot tips about subtext. Ow! Subtext are the themes and messages that are hidden within everything we say and do. Extra tip, poker tells are a form of subtext. They reveal truths hidden below.
Are ones good?
For today's lesson, I would like to start by talking about glossophobia, also known as the fear of public speaking. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears that all humans share. But what humans are actually afraid of is doing a bad job of public speaking. They are terrified of embarrassment and failure in front of others, because it leads to shame. Shame! Making me question your choices, making me wonder why you came. Shame! The fear of public speaking is the fear of shame hidden in plain sight. We are all taught so early on to fear shame for a reason. All of our mistakes, all of our choices, and all of our efforts are governed by shame filters that we possess and maintain ourselves. And that's how society likes it, because shame is villainous thoughtcraft.
It is a musing tool carved from pure evil.
Shame asks someone to emotionally wound themselves because of someone else's outside opinion.
You should make yourself feel bad because I do not like what you did.
Shame is manipulative, controlling, and as a muse, I loathe it. But before we go any further, I do need to acknowledge that shame can be useful as a teaching tool. It can be very effective to help children learn societal norms, morals, and ethics as they're developing. It can also be used to crush a child's spirit like a soda can, like they tried to do to this one here. They're never gonna get you, buddy. Not while I'm here. So please use it sparingly on the young. Some adults can also benefit from shaming as well. There are shameful acts in this world that need to be called out. Cheating, abuse, theft, murder, sexual assault, etc. People who do these things should feel shame. But if you are honestly trying your best and not doing anything that you personally consider shameful, then you have no reason to ever feel shame. Ever. Accidents happen and mistakes are made. That's what's involved with being human. We don't need to be shamed by mistakes to learn from them. Nor do we need to have all of our choices judged or criticized. Judgment and shame are partners. And a muse's goal is always understanding without judgment. So here's the secret that we tell all of our clients about feeling shame. All shame is self-inflicted. You have to allow yourself to feel shame for it to work on you. Question: why is it bad to be called shameless? And why is having no shame always frowned upon? Answer: because if the world can't shame you, they can't easily control you. Outside sources want to force you to present yourself in a way they want you to be for their comfort and use. They can say they have reasons behind their reasons, but it's all a duck blind to hide their controlling motives. No matter what the external stimulus is, you need to regulate your own shame system internally. No one else can, nor should they try. People can trick us, berate us, insult us, ignore us, or any other form of manipulation. But unless they physically attack us, they can't hurt us, unless we agree to it. This means we have more control than we realize. The first part is be aware of your shame sources and only allow the ones you trust. Learn who wants to shame you and why. I have established exactly what specific sources I accept shame from. And since my mother died a few years ago, there are very few people I allow to shame me. Love you, Janice. For the people I trust, I expect them to be honest and forthright with me when I've done something deserving of correction. Otherwise, I don't accept shaming attempts from anyone else, especially strangers or trolls. Most of the time, stranger shamers are acting out of fear, malice, or lack of compassion or understanding, which all feeds back into their own cycle of abuse. They were shamed, so others must be shamed. They were yelled at, belittled, or insulted, so now they feel like they have earned the right to do that to other people. And that right is wrong. No one is entitled to shame others they don't know. No one. Doesn't matter their position, disposition, history, or birthright. We are all equally human, just trying to make it through our days. Your mission today is to muse about shame and how much it affects your life. What are the things you normally feel shame about? Are they because of your shame levels or someone else's? How can you reduce your shame sources? And one last thing, if you're being shamed for just being yourself, no matter who the source is, they are not good for you. That person doesn't value you. They value what they want you to be. So you get to decide how much value they have to you. And that answer can be 0. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, Musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 33. Today I want to get a bit theatrical, if I may. Obsessions. That one works. Playwright William Shakespeare once wrote that all the world is a stage, and the people are merely players. From my experience, I can tell you that this is absolutely a universal truth. And in fact, it is a foundational and fundamental truth of music. Humans are constantly performing for one another. We're not talking about entertainers, we're just talking about real life. That's how we're taught to survive, by learning our role in the world. Act this way now, and then this way then, and if someone does this, that's your cue to do this, blah 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 blah. This is why you can map the world of theater and performance onto life so easily. Think through some of our previous lessons. Status is the way you display your avatar to the world. Subtext is the hidden dialogue you want to say but don't. And your obsessions are the interesting things that round out your character. This is all fine. These performances are humanity protecting itself. But a muse's job is to get past the performance, to stop the show and talk to the actor underneath. That is always our goal, but it is not always easy. This is why Muse training has baked in so many performance techniques, because that's what our society is. Society is a performance piece that humanity is creating together, all at once. We are constantly surrounded by clues that this is all getting made up as we go. Part of the problem is that no one is running the casting office. So you got unqualified performers taking whatever roles they just happen to walk into. Many people are attempting to perform as characters that they are not, for multitudes of reasons. So we are learning a new motto of musing today. Know thy audiences. And yes, it's plural. This motto is a reminder to always be aware of who you are performing for. Musing is a performance art because life is a performance. We need to be able to peek behind the curtain of real-life performances. And to do that, we need to map where the curtains start. To the theater! Here is a crude drawing of the stage at the Hollywood Bowl. It was much cruder. The opening act was an insult prop comic. This is one of the most famous performance venues in the world, and one I personally enjoy a lot. See, these are our seats, that's the stage. Now, one of the distinguishing features of the Hollywood Bowl is its large outside shell. This overall shell creates this inner arch right here called the proscenium. A word I will never learn to spell and barely know how to pronounce. A proscenium is a part of almost every traditional stage. It's essentially the part of the stage that separates the performers from the audience. And that's how I want you to think about it, but not just in the Hollywood spotlight. For a muse, we see prosceniums as the dividers between who's performing for whom in real life. We attempt to clock and read who is pretending to be what, for whom, and why. To do that, we need to read a client's reactions to people. If you have a client that acts the exact same to everyone they meet, you have a client who has figured out the secret and doesn't need a muse. But for the rest of us, we change our performances depending upon who we are interacting with and what we want.
Unless you are completely comfortable with your social interactions all of the time, there is a 1000% chance you have multiple prosceniums in play.
Here's the other fun thing about prosceniums. They are a meeting point of two planes of reality. If this is the proscenium, on each side of this divide, you can have completely different universes. And it's okay. Have you ever heard the term a fourth wall break in comedy or satire? They're talking about this invisible wall that's created by the proscenium. And muses? We're real-life fourth wall breakers. Your mission today is to muse about the prosceniums in your life. Who do you perform for and why? What kind of performances do you think people do for you? To know thy audience is to know thyself, and to know thyself is fucking sweet. If you like you. Do you? Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 34. In our short revival of modern musing, we have learned that there is no one way to guarantee success. But there are ways you can guarantee failure, and I'd like to help you avoid those. So today I want to discuss some of the pitfalls of musing. A pitfall is a dangerous trap you may not see coming, and real life is full of them, actual and metaphorical. But musing allows for mistakes because mistakes can be gifts to us. Muses are looking for genuine, authentic reactions, and the unexpected always reveals truths, which are different from opinions and are the topic of the first pitfall. Truth versus opinion. This can be a big issue with strong-minded people, and something you may run into with both your discoveries and other people's. Opinions are basically personal truths created through bias and experience. And this is what musing is, well-calculated opinion. But we can't ever confuse opinion with a well-known truth. It is true that we believe something is great, or horrible, or amazing, but that doesn't make it true for everyone. That's why we're constantly checking or updating our truths by interacting with other people through things like filter swapping or just having truthful conversations. Musing ranks humanity over society, but humans still need to be social. Which is why the next pitfall of musing is, be aware of solo adventures. Larger musing or mental cartography explorations are best done with a co-pilot or a small crew. Although we should explore our own minds as comfortably as we wish, there are many odd and dark thoughts we can get trapped in that require an outside perspective to shake loose. So just like using a spirit board or ascending a cliff face, musing is better with a partner that you trust. And musing with someone is a great way to gain trust. Just saying. The next pitfall is source bias, which is something I have to fight regularly myself. Source bias is not wanting to or being willing to accept a truth because of who is saying it, and not because of the information.
I don't care if he's right. I'm not hearing from that bag of monkeys who in their own stupid mouth holes.
I don't like taking notes from people I don't respect. I used to let it hurt my soul, but I realized that was childish, limiting, and not helpful. Truth is truth no matter the lips speaking it. Now, just because something is true today doesn't mean it will be true tomorrow. Truth has a shelf life and an expiration date. This is the next pitfall to be aware of. Everything changes eventually, even truths. As we develop and grow, so do the truths we possess and live with.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, time is undefeated.
It is a mistake to think that once you learn any truth, it will stay true forever, especially ones directly involving human behavior. Be willing to revisit and reconfirm all of your truths now and again. You may find that priorities have changed and things may seem from a different perspective. Being open to change is the key to avoiding the next pitfall of musing, which is sentiment. There's a Radiohead song lyric that states, "Don't get sentimental, it all just ends up drivel." It's broody, it's dark, and it's true for us muses. Sentiment is not great for musing or mental cartography because it sticks thoughts in place, often in another time, using our emotions as epoxy. When you get sentimental, you attempt to recreate and trap feels that are no longer present. That means you're not here. You're where you were when that was. And if we can't adapt an idea or be present in the moment, then we're not even musing. Emotional understanding of topics is very helpful to us. Permanent emotional attachment is not. On the topic of permanence, let me just say this. It ain't over till it's done. Don't ever give up thinking on a project. You never know when a new idea will perfectly fit into something. And never ever think an idea is completely finished until it's out the door and out of your hands. Even during the final stages, anything can be improved, updated, or completely redirected. Ideas are the river, not the dock. And until you make something that leaves the water, it can still change. But as Muse and Fitz would say, plan your work and work your plan. Then we improvise, my man. Oh, and that reminds me. Try not to be an asshole, which is the last pitfall of today. Musing is a great power, and with a great power comes assholes who want to abuse it. So I'm asking you kindly, please don't use any musing or mental cartography techniques to be a jerk. I realize I might be handing a few bullies bigger sticks to hit people with, but I'd like to hope that I'm leveling the playground for everyone. And if anyone you know is misusing our magical musing for malicious mischief, you make me aware. I didn't give myself the title of Daddy of Mental Cartography for nothing.
Daddy's home.
Your mission today is to never do any of these things. But seriously, your mission is to muse about these and other pitfalls you might encounter while musing. Have you ever dealt with source bias? Do you know anyone who treats their opinions like fact? Whom would you like to muse with to bond? Whoever it is, please remember, musing creates moments of vulnerability. And I'm trusting you not to take advantage of those vulnerabilities. Once you attack an open heart, it will never open that way for you again. That is a truth I know personally. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Howdy, musers. Welcome to the day off wrap-up of Muse Basic Training Week 5.
How about that? That sounds dynamite to me, Steven. Here we are with tonight's lineup.
Ooh. Monday began with the situational awareness techniques of beam of focus and a lot of B words. Beam of focus is a Muse's way of reading groups of people or events by observing specific objectives with smaller areas of activity. We call those busy areas the beehives, which are bars, buffets, backyards, and bathrooms. Beehives are great places to meet people because you can easily read their choices and find safe topics to start conversations. Just don't be the creepy person hanging out by the meatballs all night. Nobody wants that, especially people who are choosy about their balls. On Tuesday, we talked about toolcraft, and thankfully no one lost any limbs. Mental cartography tools are thought constructions that we use to tinker with the world around us.
Tinker, tinker, tinker.
To start thinking about MC tools, we reviewed the truths and processes from our obsessions that we know well. So if I had an engineering background and liked to cook, I might think of some engineering or culinary concepts that help guarantee success. Then I would see if I could adapt those concepts with a few adjustments into something that helps me understand my world a little better. Maybe even combining them to make something truly specific. And hey, the idea of ThoughtCraft tools is a lot to take in for anybody, and it won't make sense to everyone, so don't worry if this isn't for you. And that's me being straightforward. Well, curved forward anyway. That's right, on Wednesday we talked about subtext, which is what people are trying to say when they can't say what they want to say in the way they want to say it. And that may be confusing, but so is most subtext, because subtext is an intentionally vague and subtle communication style. It's trying to just hint at things instead of being direct. And as Muse and Fitz would say, anytime you're aiming, but not being direct, how precise of a target hit can you possibly expect? And while you're working on getting sexy and subtexty, don't forget to pack your shame sources into a crate and trebuchet that bullshit into a raging heat source. I never liked your haircut! Ah! As you may have guessed on Thursday, I have a personal history with shame. And to be clear, I still possess shame. Oh yeah, I got a lagoon and a crud and back. I just don't permit any rando to make me feel shame. I only allow people to critique me who also provide some form of validation or positive reinforcement as well. Here's my rule. You can only shame me if you have validated me first. So if you contain me, you can shame me, but don't contain me or refrain me, it will not entertain me. I know my worth and my target demographic. On Friday, we learned how important it is to know thy audiences. Oh hey, I'm Mitch, seat Orc C7. I'll be house left center tonight. I like war stories, boobies, and tiny kittens. But who doesn't, am I right? Knowing thy audience is about noticing who is performing for whom in real life via their prosceniums. A quick story about my father, Doc Brown. We were at a community event together in 1998 with people of various ages and maturities. I was a young man of 20, still learning myself in very many ways. And that day I saw a level of conversational dexterity and awareness that I'd never seen before in anyone else. As young, excited, dumb men around my age repeatedly asked the World War II veterans in attendance how accurate the war footage in the recently released Saving Private Ryan movie was. Was it really like that? Were there bombs everywhere? Did you see the guy with the arm? Did you see a guy with an arm? Oh my god, that must have been crazy for you. But Doc Brown took it all in stride. And he rescued these veterans from these PTSD-inducing conversations like he was pulling dudes off the beach at Dunkirk. Everybody come this way! The Broncos are having a great season! We're pivoting to Mike Shanahan! Mike Shanahan! We've all said the wrong thing at the wrong time before. It's a pitfall of life, and that's how we ended the week. Saturday was about the perils and pitfalls of modern music. It was a lot, so we had to go to a second board. Here they are, baby, with a one-line escorts for each. Your pitfalls to avoid are truth versus opinion. All opinions are truths to someone, but not all opinions are truths at all. Beware of solo musing. The deeper you go into anything, the better it is to have someone you trust with you. Source bias, which is you don't get to dismiss the truth just because that stupid, ugly jerk face happened to be right this time. Ugh. Truth shelf life. Truths can wrinkle and sag just like any of our fun bits. Best to give everything a jostle now and again, just to know it's still true and what's still fun. Sentiment is emotional epoxy that we want to avoid because it holds us in the past. It Ain't Over Till It's Done reminds us that when it comes to ideas and creation, you should never give up, never surrender. Oh, and try not to be an asshole. And if you're going to make a joke about how do I do that, you're already starting very poorly. Okay, if you've got week 5 on lock, you should be able to use Toolcraft to create things like beam of focus, to know thy audience's prosceniums, to see through their subtext to their true shame, avoiding another page full of pitfalls. There it is, week 5. What? If you're having any issues understanding any of this, it's my fault for not explaining it correctly. Don't be afraid to change any portion of this to suit your needs. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Greetings, Musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 36. Oh my god. Because it's Rumble Pit Week. Rumble Transform. The Rumble Pit is a live online discussion event where all the participants of this session of Muse training can muse together for one night. It's our graduation, prom, homecoming, and senior variety show all in one. We're taking this training from introspective to interactive with applications that are far more advanced than anything we've done. What makes a great musing question?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking.
But seriously, good questions are not only one of the best ways to get to know someone, but they are shortcuts to trust and intimacy. If you ask the right question in the right way, you can make a friend for life in a heartbeat. Will you marry me? Conversely, you can ask the wrong question at the worst time and destroy someone's confidence. Oh, is that all you have to offer? People make the mistake of treating conversations and questions as utilitarian and not any form of expression or creation. They don't know how to build discussion and instead just take turns throwing words onto a pile in hopes to assemble something interesting out of the pieces. Musing questions involve serving positive curiosity with a side of empathy and enthusiasm. Questions should be interesting to all involved, who is answering and who is asking. If you care about the topic of a question, you care about the answer. And if you both care about a conversation, it makes it genuine. And genuine moments are what muses are after. And we can do some addition by subtraction here. We can add joy into this process by removing judgment. Great musing questions have no judgment in the ask or the answer. Now, this note is just as much about delivery as it is about content. Remember the lessons we learned about subtext and how the way we say things can affect people? How you ask a question directly affects the type of answer you will get. Short, direct questions will get short, direct answers. Open-ended questions open things to the world. So what kind of answers do you want to get? Different musings may require different specific goals and truths. But musing is always about the interaction of ideas and emotions, so we are always looking for displays of personal emotion and clues to feels. Now you may remember those phrases from a Muse's Home Companion because it's the same basic idea. We use those concepts to look at people's environments to see what they care about. You can do the same things with the words they choose and the topics they love. When someone answers a musing question, we need to be aware of everything they are communicating.
Everything.
Because their body will tell you what it wants to talk about. Seriously, plants will lean towards a source of sunlight, just like humans will lean into interesting conversations. It's nutrition for our soul. Now, our study of physical status tells us that the act of leaning into anything means we are making ourselves more vulnerable. We are putting our unprotected face closer to danger. Now, how do we interest someone enough to put their face in possible peril?
Obsessions.
Alright, I'm starting to like that guy. It's true, the easiest way to have a conversation that interests people is to make it about something they are actually interested in. But that's only one half the battle. You need to be invested as well. To do this, look into someone's obsessions and find the things that interest you. Human connections only occur on common ground, and common ground can be hard to find. But muses know where to start looking. Start with yourself and a mirror technique. Use your own response to questions about your obsessions as guideposts. What kind of feels do you get while talking about your obsessions? How can you create an opportunity for someone else to have those same feels about their obsessions? What is a question you wish someone would ask you about something you care about? How does someone else show an interest in your work in a way that you appreciate? When you figure out that question, throw a new coat of paint on it and turn it on someone else. Think about musing questions. Do you have a favorite question you like to ask people when you meet them? What's a question you can ask someone to get them to reveal their joy? Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 37. Yesterday we discussed the power of good musing questions and how they can open secret doors to trust and intimacy.
Questions loaded. Ask away!
Today I'm going to take you back to when I was a sophomore in high school and I was recruited onto the debate team. My main event was a two-person policy-style debate called cross-examination, or CX. To avoid losing all of you, I'm going to skim through to the stuff I want to talk about. Now, in every CX debate, there's an affirmative side and a negative side. The affirmative, or AF side, presents a plan to address that year's resolution. Basically, they present a way to solve a social problem with some kind of plan. The resolutions I worked with when I was in school were about healthcare and immigration. That was 35 years ago, and not much has been resolved since. Anyway, the AF presents their plan along with evidence that the plan is needed and will work in the form of what are called stock issues. The 5 stock issues I learned are significance, harms, inherency, topicality, and solvency. These 5 issues and the affirmative plan are basically what the entire debate is about. These are the truths that the affirmative team has to provide and then defend because they have the burden of proof. The negative team, or neg, has the burden of refutation. They don't have to prove anything true. They just have to prove that either the affirmative team's plan won't work or one of these stock issues is false. If the negative team can flip one of these stock issues to their side, they should win the debate, because all of these are needed for a solid argument. These 5 words are the basis of a solid debate case that can be used to build any kind of argument. They also spell the word shits, so they're easy to remember. And that is the official title of this lesson. I didn't make any of this up, but I love that I know it. But before I run down the shits here, I want to tell you what this lesson is really about. Muses need to be able to discuss, debate, and argue effectively with our clients. I have, in the past, talked people off of ledges, both metaphorically and literally. I've also been talked down once myself. It is a very real situation that professional muses and many good listeners have to be ready for. There are just some arguments you can't afford to lose. But enough of that heavy stuff, let's get back to the shits. Not that these are less important shits that we're talking about. These are just gentler and easier to process. Now let me go down the flow and explain these shits. The stock issues of significance and harms work hand in hand. Significance states that there is a real issue and the problem is significant. It's not just something minor. Harms confirms what financial, societal, or health issues are being caused by the problem. So let's say the resolution was about stopping people pooping their pants. Along with a plan, the affirmative would have to provide evidence that there is a significant amount of people pooping and it's causing harm through financial strain, trauma, or severe staining. Inherency evidence shows that the problem is already happening or imminently will happen if nothing is done. So for this resolution, it would be an article about an upcoming chili cook-off, maybe? Topicality means the affirmative team must follow the resolution. You can't just say, no one needs pants, and not debate the argument everyone is prepared for. Well, actually you can. It's called a squirrel case, but that's not for Muse Basic either. Topicality basically means you have to stay on the topic of the argument. People deflect and change arguments when they're avoiding truths. Don't let them lose focus on the real issue at hand. If people are pooping themselves, we need a plan that will work. And that's where the last stock issue of solvency comes in. Will this plan work? Will it solve the problem? Is this plan even possible? Those are all arguments to attack the solvency of a case. Now, am I telling you all this to get into a CX debate with your client? Hell no! I would recommend Lincoln Douglas debate for that. Anyway, the point is, to build any argument properly, you need a framework to build around. That framework should be made of stock issues that are important to you. But feel free to start with these. You can use them just in pieces or all together. Some of you might already have had a shits debate. If you've ever had to convince a loved one that they were doing significant harm through their actions, and had to keep them on topic to remind them that it will inherently get worse if the problem isn't solved. If you have, you've lived through a cross-examination debate. In real life, you don't always need to win any traditional kind of way. Sometimes it's just about getting people to say things out loud so they can hear themselves say it. Soliloquy taught us the power of hearing our own voice. And if you get someone to speak their truth out loud, let them keep talking. Your mission for today is to muse about how you build an argument. What stock issues or shits are important to you? Have you ever been convinced by a great argument? What won you over in the end? For me, it was hearing the truth that my worth shouldn't come from an outside source. And that one little truth burned bright enough to guide me out of the dark. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 38. We started this week talking about how to ask clients musing questions. Openly. Then we discussed how to have an argument with a client. Gently. And today I want to introduce another secret weapon of muse and client interaction with the lesson of
Rating, the lost art.
Can't play the music, don't have the rights. Please don't sue me, it's not very good. I want to start this lesson with a definition of rating, or the verb to rate, which is to assign a standard or value to something according to a particular scale. The rating systems you might be familiar with would be like polls, or surveys, questionnaires, star reviews, etc. These are actually very unique thought crafts in the fact that they translate one type of human data into another. They can take your opinion of something and turn that into a numerical value. First off, that is classic mental cartography at its finest vintage. But no matter who you are or where you are never just a number. Ever. One of the tricks about all rating systems is that they all reveal what is actually important to the rater. Examining what information people are attempting to collect will tell you what they're actually looking to measure, and what they really want from you. Hey honey, I'm doing this survey for Dracula Industries. How does our household feel about sleeping with exposed necks? The entire industry of marketing is based around understanding, creating, and weaponizing rating systems. But every time the world finds a way to steal our humanity, a muse finds a way to steal it back. So muses use rating systems, but we use them our way. But before we get into that, just a note here, I'm talking about rating systems, not ranking systems. Those are completely different thought crafts. Ranking systems ask you to put things in a preferred order, typically from best to worst or back the other way. And the basis of that system is making comparisons. But it limits the way you can review something if you are required to compare it to something else. I don't like to pre-limit imagination or karaoke room rental times. I will ask a client to rate something from their passions that I find interesting. What are the categories we need to understand how amazing this is? Let's say I wanted to rate one-hit wonder songs from the 90s. I am a firm believer that the 1990s was one of the greatest decades for music ever. Buy us a drink if you agree, but get us two if you don't. Okay, so if I wanted to rate 90s singles, I would need some ways to tell the good from the bad. So I'll just choose 5 categories that I understand well and care about to judge each one. So my 5 judging criteria, as it is called, would be singability, emotions, coolness, sexiness, and camp. Now I would run every 90s one-hit wonder I know through these categories and see how they come out. Gotta say, I think In the Meantime by Space Hog is gonna be way up there. But the rating part doesn't really matter, because the sneaky part has already really happened. You're now holding the holy grail of client musing, or more accurately, the Rosetta Stone. Because the process of creating the rating system with someone is where the magic happens. I just unveiled a huge amount of my truth to y'all, if y'all were looking. These 5 categories are things I personally care about. Not just as a 90s music fan, but as a human. These are things I truly value. And if you ask someone to describe the things they love, they will start with the values and the attributes they care about first. All you have to do is listen and learn. Your musing mission today is to muse about your rating systems. Are there values that are always part of your ratings? Are there rating systems that you always trust? Or don't? Can you rate something from one of your obsessions with a rating system from one of your other obsessions? Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 39. Ooh, one more punch on our card and we get to upsize our next training or get a free side salad.
All we do is win.
Yesterday we had an adventure with the lost art of rating. I had a questionnaire for Fred Astaire about Legionnaires, but he didn't care, so I won't share. Today we're going to shake things up by starting with our musing mission. That's right, your next musing mission is to create your version of a functional personality test in what I call the personality test. I'm asking you to create a system that you can use to easily categorize every single person you know. I would like you to start this by visualizing and creating a series of umbrella terms that you believe cover everyone. And here are the parameters I want you to use.
Here we go now.
For your personality test, you must have at least 3 different categories of people. Each category must have positive and negative traits. You can't just say, and then there's the assholes. Not this time. Because everyone gets an umbrella. Everyone you know and can think of must fit clearly into one of the categories. If you think of someone that doesn't fit, you have to build another category for them. And finally, you can have hybrid categories, but then it's a new category. Try to use your obsessions as a backdrop for these if you can. Doesn't matter what the categories are, just as long as they make sense to you. The version I created for myself started as a way for me to better understand improv comedy and its performers. Let me show you. I call it the herald positions, and I defined the 5 types of improvisers that I noticed. Alphas, betas, swings, wild cards, and specialists. I created these by watching improvisers and paying attention to how they performed, not just what they performed. I consider myself to be a swing who's a specialist in accents and narrative structure. Other specialties can include clown work, pop culture, game, physicality, singing, buttons, or even stunts. Sorry, we're getting off track. I could talk about improvisation in men's fashion all day, but work must intrude. When we all started this journey together 5.5 weeks ago, I told you there was one idea that drives all of musing. Musing starts with this implacable idea we hold as truth. Every single person is special, beautiful, and unique in their own way and has something wonderful to offer to the world that no one else can. That is not just a platitude. When we say understanding without judgment, we mean it. And how we achieve it is with a concept called From Umbrellas to Raincoats. Umbrellas to Raincoats is a visualization thoughtcraft that muses use to read groups of people or situations. The idea is that we read people into smaller and smaller categories until we can recognize their unique individuality. When you encounter a group of people that you have never met, visualize that they are all under one shared umbrella. At that point, they all share the same unifying umbrella of being here right now. One umbrella for everybody. That's all we know. But the problem is when anyone is under an umbrella, all you can really make out is what the umbrella says. Bill? What do I know about Bill? Oh, he's a teacher, I think. If you know one fact about someone, that's the umbrella they will be under in your head. But as you read the space and interact with people, they'll start to break off into smaller umbrella groups. You find out that Bill, Rick, the Moyers, and Donna are all teachers as well. And pretty good ones. Now it's a smaller umbrella just for those 4, but they are still all sharing the teacher umbrella. Then you clock that Bill teaches sci-fi fantasy and enjoys Arthurian legend, and BAM! Now that you know his details, they can define him as a character in your story. Out from under the umbrella walks Bill the Arthurian, adorned in a personalized Dry-as-a-Bone jacket that says Death to Ewoks on it. That is how we recognize people and try to understand them. First categorized under umbrellas for our own understanding, and then in individualized raincoats once we know their features enough to define the edges of their humanity. It's a lot. You've already received the musing mission for this section, which is the personality test. When you create your categories for that test, they can become your starting parasols for your version of umbrellas to raincoats. My world goal for musing is to give everyone the ability to respectfully understand each other. That starts with the ability to recognize our humanity in all of its beautiful states. And my hope for all of you is that no matter where you roam, you'll be seeing raincoats with joyful owners. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, musers. Welcome to Muse Basic Training Day 40. And here we are. Today's the day it's come to be and here to stay. Yesterday we put people in raincoats.
And you're in a raincoat, and you're in a raincoat. Everyone is in a raincoat!
The thing I forgot to mention was all the different ways you could read information that helps individualize people's raincoats, which is every other lesson we've learned so far. Seriously, besides becoming an expert on yourself, these are the culminating skills of Muse Basic Training. Connecting people together and celebrating the greatness of humanity is what musing is really all about. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know that before I started creating this training program. I had a general plan and a rough outline of what I wanted to accomplish, but this all started out as challenge art for me. And challenge art is the title of this final musing lesson. I am a huge fan of challenge art. It brings me such joy. Challenge art is when an artist or creator gives themselves an obstacle they must overcome to complete their creation. When successful, it can often transcend the medium it is made in and influence other artists across genres. Let me give you some examples. In the 1948 movie Rope, director Alfred Hitchcock challenged himself to make editorial cuts only when he needed to change the film canisters. In the roughly 80-minute film, there are only 10 edits, most of which are hidden in staged movements. That was so incredibly complex for them to do with their filming technology. And this filming technique of long takes has inspired many cinematic moments of incredible greatness. That's why creative people choose these huge challenges to undertake. Writing full musicals in other languages, completely changing your genre of performance or type of art, making the world's biggest, first, or only anything, or beating a video game with ridiculous restrictions. Just so you know, gaming is storytelling. It's art, just like art is. And the more unique the art challenge is, the more unique the outcomes. Especially when it's artists inspiring other artists to take it up another level. I got a story about it. Want to hear it? Here it go. For the 1966 album Pet Sounds, Beach Boys frontman Brian Wilson set out to create an album that was specifically better than the Beatles' album Rubber Soul. We've got to beat these Brits, bruh. And guess what? He did it. Because as the story goes, Paul McCartney and John Lennon of the Beatles heard Pet Sounds and immediately asked to hear it again. We can't let these Yanks define rock and roll, now can we? And the Beatles were inspired to crush it for their next album, Revolver. All three albums are considered to be some of the best of that generation. I myself have been involved with my own version of challenge art. I perform at a long-form narrative improv show called The Understudies that my partner Danny and I started in 2009. Love you too, Jordan and Brian! Danny and I improvise an hour-long 3-act play from a single suggestion, pretending to be the understudies of legendary actors. Now, improvising for an hour with just 2 people in itself is pretty challenging. But that's not the only challenge we made for ourselves. We break every rule of improv that doesn't suit our needs. And our one unique rule is, if we can't do it in real play, we can't do it in our show. So our challenge is to replicate a legitimate theatrical production out of thin air. And we've gotten pretty damn good at it.
You don't believe me? Just watch.
My other big piece of challenge art is the experience we're sharing right now. I made this Muse Basic Training as a piece of challenge art to myself. And I gave myself one major restriction that I had to work within. That's right, I could only use things on or around my desk to teach every lesson. And I could only use the editing software that came with this computer. I bought 3 small dry erase boards and a bunch of markers because I decided that all of my visuals had to be hand-drawn. As you may have clocked, my handwriting is not great. I've had issues with it my entire life, and it used to bring me incredible shame to display my handwriting. So I forced myself to make it a part of this training so I could get better at it, and to show other people that stranger shame is nothing to fear. I made this. Huh? I do apologize if my writing has been hard to read, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on it without judgment. I made this too. Thanks. So now it's time to extend this art challenge to you. Your last musing mission is to make a piece of challenge art inspired by something you discovered during this program. Create something that speaks to your heart but you believe might be difficult.
Use the tools, Muse. Use the tools.
If you already have a project or something you've been wanting to attack, guess fucking what? This is your call to action. But if you don't have anything specific in mind, I challenge you to make a video, drawing, presentation, animation, observation, proclamation, or declaration of your sensations. Share the way you see the world with other musers. Receive their positive but honest thoughts, and let's see what kind of renaissance we can get started together. This time, please give yourself as much musing time as you need. Don't be afraid to change any portion of this to suit your needs. And if you're in need, never be afraid to reach out to other muses. We can't be everywhere to help, but we can help everywhere we are. Bon courage out there. Cheers. Greetings, Musers! Welcome to the last day off wrap-up of Muse Basic Training. So this is actually our wrap-out. I am truly sorry that this had to end, but there's nothing further for me to teach you at this price point. Oh, and hey, did you get Giraffe's message? We worked together to hide a coded message for you to find. You may have missed it because it was hidden and it didn't start at the very beginning of the training. But here's your hint. This is a dash and this is a dot. And Mr. Ryan, my Morse is so rusty I could have been sending you dimensions on Playment of the Month. Let us know if you figure out the message, but please, try not to be an asshole. And don't spoil it for others.
Now let's finish strong.
Here we go. Ooh, this one's pretty heavy. We did a lot. On Monday, we began a quest for musing questions. Onward to understanding. We learned that questions are not just requests for information, but can be vessels for connection and reveal caring. When we ask interesting questions about a topic, it shows interest in the person we are asking, which is really just paying attention and asking honest follow-ups about what authentically interests you. That is why I hate small talk. It feels inauthentic. I prefer my talk to be medium to thick. I want to get into the real shit with people. On Tuesday, we talked about shits. And if your shits are this colorful, you should really see your gastroenterologist. The shits for us was an acronym used in CX debates to remember the stock issues, which are significance, harms, inherency, topicality, and solvency. Not every argument or debate requires all of these stock issues. And this is not the only way to use stock issues to your benefit. But if you have a plan to do anything, these stock issues are a good way to confirm whether it's a good plan or not, or if it's even needed. Is this issue you are planning for a significant problem? How harmful is it and to whom? How inherent is the need for this? Are you solving for the topic? Will the solution even work? And that's how you make questions and colorful shits work for you. On our last Wednesday together, we discussed the difference between rating and ranking systems with
Raiders, the Lost Art. I'm sorry, that's just what my voice does when I say that. Give it a second.
I'm back. Ranking systems care more about the order than the content, so Muses prefer rating systems. They help you define what you are rating, but also reveal what traits you believe are important. Speaking of situational outerwear, on Frank Stevens, we visualized the idea of going from large shared umbrellas to personalized raincoats using a personality test. Muses learn how to recognize each other's humanity quickly and accurately. This is not about easily categorizing people, this is about easily understanding people. If we can't recognize someone else's humanity, that is our fault as the observer. Even the worst SVOs throughout history were still human. Although it can be quite a challenge to see that.
Challenge? Were mortals wagging their tongues of challenge?
We did indeed, Master Glory Whore. On Friday when we talked about challenge art.
Challenge.
This work you were watching was a piece of challenge art for me. I achieved far more than I believed I could with this challenge. And so we're going to be passing on the same opportunity to you. I challenge you to make a piece of art inspired by this training. That creation can be artistic, scientific, culinary, performative, automotive, innovative, personal, party-packed, or snack-sized. It just needs to be authentic to you, because there is nothing greater than being authentically yourself. It doesn't need to be great, glorious, gargantuan, or even good! Just like sex with me. Oh, come on now! In the previous day off wrap-ups, I would have challenged myself to condense all of the week's lessons into an overstuffed sentence or two. But, not this time. I began shooting this training in early February 2025. Because of some of my poor scheduling, I ended up writing, shooting, and editing each lesson on my own the day before it was due to my founders. It was a grueling, exhausting, and intense personal project. It got even more personal on March 10th, just as I was starting to create week 5, when my father, Dr. Craig Brown, passed away. I paused the training and gave my amazingly understanding founders a week off for spring break. Took 7 days to rebuild myself into something human-shaped, and put just enough of myself back together to finish the last 2 weeks of scheduled lessons that I had to shoot. You can tell the lessons that happened after Dad passed because Giraffe started wearing black. This project outgrew me and took me with it. It became a daily obsession of intense self-discovery, born from one question I asked myself. If you're so smart, why aren't you happy? It's a question I really would have loved to talk to my father about. I am dedicating this entire training and all lessons learned therein to my father, Dr. Craig Stephen Brown. Thank you for putting trust in this training. We truly hope you have been able to be here now, become an expert on yourself, and always be able to find understanding without judgment. Look out for each other. Find us when you need us. Bon courage out there. Cheers.